The UNI Cooperating Teacher Training video series. I'm Lori Smith and I will be taking you through this presentation. We will be discussing Part 4 and 5 of the UNI Student Teaching Handbook. On page 35 you will see the section on observation and evaluation of student teachers. On page 37 through 39, there's a discussion about how important feedback is. It is an ongoing process. So from the time your student teacher starts to the time they're finished with this experience, continue to provide feedback. Some of it can be done informally, some of it is done through formal observations, and certainly you can do it through Google Docs, email, or some written format. When scheduling a visit, the UNI coordinator and the student teacher will go over the schedule of the student teacher and their teaching expectations to find the best possible times to do an observation. We encourage everybody in this process to be flexible. When we come in to observe a lesson, please help us find a place to sit during that observation. The student teacher should have a printed copy for the university coordinator to follow during the lesson. And note that any lesson is acceptable for a visit except if the students are testing for a period of time, or there's a video being played for the majority of a period, or there's a scheduled field trip. After the student teacher teaches a lesson, the coordinator would like to meet with that student teacher for a brief period of time to discuss the lesson observation notes. They will talk about what went well, what to think about, and discuss goals for future planning and delivery of lessons. Certainly this is a great time for the student teacher or the cooperating teacher to ask any questions. On page 40 through 43 of the handbook, there's a section on what to do when addressing student-teacher performance problems. At the university, we do have a process in place called the Notice of Concern, and there's information on what to do if a student-teacher has to withdraw from this process. In this particular section, we go over what to do for filing the Notice of Concern. Your UNI coordinator will take care of a lot of that, but we encourage you to provide us with evidence and information that will help us develop an action plan to help the student teacher feel successful. In some cases, it may require doing more visits on behalf of the UNI coordinator. There are 3 evaluations that we do for the student teacher. And in this process, we have a 2-week progress report, a midterm evaluation, and a final evaluation. On page 44 of the UNI Teaching Handbook, you will find the 2-week progress report. There's a top part and a bottom part. On the top, it talks about some of the experiences that the student has been a part of the first 2 to 3 weeks. The bottom part of the 2-week progress report, you will find that there's more information on the characteristics of the teacher at that particular time. So you will mark either acceptable or needs improvement for that particular student. And certainly there's a place for you to write comments. The midterm evaluation happens about halfway through this experience. On page 46 of the Student Teaching Handbook, you will see the midterm evaluation for a secondary or elementary major. On page 63, you will find that there's a different evaluation for anybody who's an early childhood education major. Goals will be discussed at this particular visit, and we will talk about the details of the characteristics marked on that particular evaluation done by the cooperating teacher. Here's an example of what it looks like for a midterm for an elementary or secondary student teacher. You will see that there are 6 areas that you can mark for each characteristics. There is either not applicable, minimal evidence, beginning, emerging, proficient, or advanced for you to mark. In addition, the handbook gives you lots of support on expanded rubrics. For each one of those performance characteristics, you will see a paragraph that identifies what exactly that performance area looks like. There's also that midterm for early childhood found on page 63, and their characteristics are unsatisfactory, low competence, competence, high competence, and outstanding. So it's a little bit different than the secondary or elementary. On page 64 through 78, you will find an expanded rubric for early childhood. And again, it identifies a descriptor for each one of those characteristics. And there's also another type of rubric that you can find through pages 79 through 95. There's a final evaluation. This is the 3rd evaluation piece that we do in the student teaching process. Again, those are found on different pages for elementary, secondary, which will be found on page 59, and early childhood is found on page 98. This evaluation will go in the UNI system, and the CT will write a narrative. So there's a little bit more of a process involved with the final evaluation than there was for the midterm. There's also, you will use the same expanded rubric section to give you support during the final evaluation process. As you see the final evaluation for elementary and secondary majors, you see that on page 59 it's exactly the same as the midterm. We hope that we see some improvements in the student teaching performances as we move on in this experience, or by the end of this experience. This is the secondary and elementary one. And again, that expanded rubrics is the same as what you used for your midterm. The only difference again in the final evaluation is that there is a paragraph, a final evaluation paragraph support. And on page 57 through 58, you will see what to put in that final evaluation. And there's more support using this website. Early childhood has the same exact evaluation that they use for the midterm, and we hope to see some advancement in their performance levels as they move through this process. You will also find in the book on page 60 or 99 that there are some evaluative qualities that you can use in your writing as you write that narrative, and that's here for your support. And again, the early childhood has the same expanded rubric as what they used in the midterm. Finally, the last section of the book, Part 5, has frequently asked questions and forms. You will find a lot of resources, and we encourage you to go through on page 101, starting on page 101, all of those frequently asked questions. You'd be surprised at how many questions are being answered for yourself in this particular section. Finally, there's one form that we want to talk about, and that's the disposition form. This is a form used to identify what the expectations are for desirable dispositions for our UNI student teachers. And we hope that we have our student teachers in a range of a 2 or 3 as they finish up this experience. And basically the disposition form goes over what our expectations are for collaboration, honesty and integrity, respect, professionalism and growth, emotional maturity, and leadership and responsibility. We'd like to thank the following resources for providing us with these photos. More resources, and thank you for listening to video 3.